Hello and welcome. We're very excited today to have a webinar with our friends from Let's Go Learn. My name is Bridget Bright, and I'm the Associate Executive Director for CASE, which is the Council of Administrators of Special Education. And I'm joined today by Richard Capone and Dr. Jordan Smith. I'll be introducing Richard and then letting him introduce Dr. Smith as well. But I wanted to share with attendees some exciting news from CASE. This is going to be recorded, and so we'll be posting this on our website in the upcoming days. But tomorrow, which is May 16th, we are going to be launching registration for the 2024 CASE Conference that will be held November 6th through 8th in Savannah, Georgia. So please mark your calendars, visit the CASE website, which is casecec.org, and learn more about this really exciting event. We have been growing every year in our conference, and we just know this is going to be another excellent in-person event. So moving on to our great session today that's going to be discussing AI, I'd like to turn it over to our friend Richard Capone with Let's Go Learn.
Thank you so much. So we're real excited for this webinar, and we're going to have follow-up webinars. AI is such a hot topic, and I can't explain enough or convey enough how excited I am about it. Dr. Smith is on the forefront of doing some exciting things, and we're going to share some of those with you today. But I am, in the interest of time, I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to turn it over to him. We're going to go a full 30 minutes and then have time for QA at the very end. And so we'll do the QA after 30 minutes. And then, like I said, also, it's being recorded. You're going to get the slides. You're going to get everything emailed to you tomorrow. So some of the stuff in the slides we won't cover, but you'll get the PDF file. All right. Dr. Smith, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm glad to be back and to join Bridget and also Richard as we go on this new path, a new journey, what I call AI. I'm Dr. Jordan Smith. I graduated from the Naval Academy. I've been teaching math and computer science for over 20 years. I was the Amazon Future Engineer Teacher of the Year. I was a crazy guy that brought AP Computer Science to a continuation in alternative school. But now I'm really excited about my new venture I've always have a focus of helping kids learn, the ones that have given up on learning. But today I'm really excited. So I'm going to go quickly. Again, you're going to get copies of this, but in essence of time, I want to be able to get down to the work that I've actually been doing, because it's very exciting. And I probably still won't be able to go to sleep. And hopefully during this presentation, you'll probably say the words I call, oh my God. So AI, the role of AI in special education, that's what we're going to speak about today. But the capabilities, personalization, accessibility, and most important, data-driven insights. We've heard about data-driven insights and about data, but the question is, who is actually doing it? With AI, this brings us a new horizon. So you've heard of the term GPT, which is actually a generative pre-trained transformer, but I want to bring something else important so you understand where we're going and why it's important that we get our teachers in special education working with AI. It started back in 2018, where they started with a database, and AI is data-driven, especially the Chat GPT. It started with 4.8 gigabytes, but it was all unfiltered. Then it moved to 2019, and then we have 40 gigabytes, but notice then it was now human filtered. In other words, you actually have humans taking a look at the data, because what they got that first time was not what they wanted. Garbage in gave you garbage out. But by GPT-3, which is June of 2000, that database had grown to over 570 gigabytes, but it was filtered from 45 terabytes. This is where we came up and where we also started realizing that we needed someone called data science. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics this year put out a position statement specifically focusing on the area of data science courses in high school. There is a reason for it, and AI is part of it. Now we come up to GPT-4, which is in March 2023, and it says human demonstrations and annotation. Human demonstrations. This is why it is so important that we get our special education teachers and general education teachers involved in AI. Because the more that we interact with this, the smarter it's going to be able to help. And most importantly, it's going to save us time and help our students learn. So prompt engineering is really the key word that I want you to understand, is how do you write something and get it to do what you want it to do? Well, I want to help you enlighten you on that. So we want to talk about the art of prompt engineering for special education. But in my special case, I'm going to actually talk about LGL and also Chat GPT AI. Now let's talk about our journey at my school. So I have been using Let's Go Learn since 2022. And the reason I did it was because I had students that were not learning. Everything else, all the platforms, you can take everything concerning the COVID, all the different experiences. The bottom line, my students weren't learning. And LGL and that platform allowed my students to get engaged. So I went from 85 students in this last year. We've had over 274 students that are actually use the platform. But here's the big key for myself. 100% of my students that had an IEP had their math goals met. Now, that was important, but also, unfortunately, as an educator, like right now, last week, I spent the whole week involved with getting my students ready for the SBAC, the end of the year testing. I still have that requirement. Well, I needed to look at something. How can I get my students in my environment, which come to me with no credits, to also be able to be prepared for the SBAC? And I started my own investigation. I started working with Chat GPT 3.5. And then I started looking at Chat 4.0. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of tired up in here. But that came out in April. But then that prompted and motivated me to write a book because I wanted to get a better understanding because I heard about AI, all the myths and everything else. But the question is, what is AI and what is it? So I went to school and actually started getting training and certification. Then I started doing data mining. And then this is when the oh my God situation started to happen. But why am I teaching and why am I doing this? I'm doing this because of students like this student here. She wrote me this letter here. She's actually graduating. She's going to be walking in a couple of weeks. But she called me about her. She called me her best teacher. She's really one of my best students as well. But it was students like that that came to me that couldn't do math, that lost their confidence and everything else. And Let's Go Learn allowed me to restore the student. But I have general education students, but I also have special ed students or students with IEPs or 504 plans, which are in my class. And these are two students. These two students could not progress. They had hit a brick wall. They were not being successful, and they were not on track to graduate from high school if it had not been for Let's Go Learn. So the class of 2023 and the class of 2024. But here's some examples. Why do I use Let's Go Learn? I use it because of the results. And the results I'm going to show you are not atypical, but they are typical. And I can show you hundreds of more because the results are all the same. The bottom line, I put an 11th grader that came to me with 0 credits. Their grade level score increased from 3.71 to 6.92, had a growth of 3.21. Here's another student, short time frame of 3 months, went from a grade level of 6.5 to 7.2. In other words, over a half a year of growth. Now, but what is AI and what is prompt engineering? So AI is the technology that mimics our human intelligence and used to it. I have Alexa. That was my first example. If you have an iPhone, you've been speaking with Siri. You've already been using AI. But now we're going to go and step into the next generation because I could not get Alex to go ahead and draw me out a quadratic equation, or the first time I did it. She's changed. She's gotten smarter. But AI mimics the human. But the most important thing that we need to understand as teachers is how to craft the inputs to obtain useful output that is going to be good for us to look at accurate data in education and to interpret that data. So we need additional precision diagnostic, and that's what Let's Go Learn does. So there are different things. I'm a WASP coordinator and also a WASP chairperson, and I go out into our community, and there are different platforms, but again, we're looking for the data. So I'm just going to talk about the one that I know that I've been using for the last 2 years is the data and stuff that comes out of LGL as I go through my examples. But there's 10 reasons, and I don't have time to go over all of them because I really want to get down and actually go into the actual case examples that I've done. But there are 10 reasons for integrating AI into special education. And here are the 10. Okay, personalized learning, enhanced accessibility, student engagement, early intervention, round-the-clock support. If you teach a student how to use the AI, he has access to a 24-hour tutor in order to help them, and especially for students with have disabilities. But also, once you get something and it works, you're able to scale it out. Okay, so this AI can actually save time. So I'm not going to go over all these, but again, Personalized learning, you're going to get a copy of these slides, and as we go on, it allows you to do data-driven insights, allows you to enhance accessibility. You can do speech to text with students. It also allows you to an efficient resource. I was able to do something. I'm going to show you examples of what I was able to do, that in 2 hours, I was able to reproduce the work that 2 teachers took 60 hours during the summers when we did the transition from the Common Core. AI for improved student engagement. If it's not engaging, it will not help and the students will not learn. Culture relevance, here's the key. So I will stop on this. In other words, I found out that what really engages our students with learning disabilities, but not just there, in my general education classroom, all students, is that it has to be something connected to something in their real life, and then they will learn it, and more importantly, they won't forget it. I bring your attention to this screen, and we've already heard of these. Culturally responsive teaching, culturally sustaining teaching, how do we do that? But then we also said culturally relevant teaching, but I want to look beneath the ground here where it says marginalized communities. What lies beneath the surface of what the traditional education system has ignored, the rich wealth of knowledge of these communities and the ways of thinking. This is engagement. If we can tap root into change our learning to this. So reason number 6, early intervention. It allows us to identify the gaps. Round the clock support, enhancing communication with AI, professional development. Yes, as a teacher, I can customize my professional development if I understand how to use the AI too. And reason number 10, the most important, once you have a solution, you can scale it. So once you do this in one school or just one test pilot and everything else, you can spread it throughout your school, you can spread it throughout your district, because once you create it, it is there. So now let's get down to the bottom. This is what I'm excited about, and I'm going to show you an example. The first thing is this. In 2010, when we had to introduce the Common Core standards, and we had to change all of our curriculum, even in our alternative environment, we always started with the one thing. One thing is this mathematics framework. Now, I'm in California, so after the Common Core, then they came out with the mathematics framework. But there was one in 2013, and they just recently came out one for 2023. If you've ever looked at the state blueprints for mathematics, you can have your coffee and everything else, but I guarantee you, most teachers do not get through all of it because it is really dense. The concepts are there. But the question is, as a teacher, what do I want to know? What I want to know is that, okay, for instance, what I did was went to ChatGPT, and you can only do this. I mentioned about the different levels. Okay, Chat 3.5 is free. It's available for you to do that. But if you want to do the things I'm doing here today and showing you, you want to take the investment and pay $20. It's $20 or $240 a year in order to be able to use the data. So in this case, I'm going to show you my real life examples of how this saved time. What I did was I uploaded the 2013 framework, and then I uploaded the 2023 framework, and then I asked AI to do the following. Perform a comparative analysis to summarize the major changes between the math frameworks for integrated math 1. I'm a new high school math teacher, and I have received no training in frameworks. That is a prompt. I'm letting them know and giving them context of exactly what type of teacher I am and what did it give me. It actually compared the earlier framework with the new framework. Then it also compared the instructional approaches and the framework. Look at example on instructional approaches. It says the earlier framework categorized the learning objectives and instructional strategies above the broad mathematical practices and contents. But the new one highlights an integrated approach to teaching that combines knowledge with the mathematical practices. Integration of technology, the earlier framework said, yeah, we need to use technology. On the new framework, it says, no, you need to integrate this into your practices. Real world applications, the earlier framework mentioned the real world. The new framework said there is a significant shift. Now, how long would it have taken me to actually take both of those frameworks and have come up with this information? How many hours? This is the power of AI. The questions that you ask is critical. In this case, it also had the changes. I'm going to go on to the next one because otherwise I would definitely get lost in here.
So Dr. Smith, I'm going to interject real quickly. So one of the things
Sure,
I think
go
a
ahead.
takeaway for all of you is you need to create a prompt engineering committee or have some point person who is going to take on prompt engineering at your organization. I think it's a really important position to have, and that committee or person will help create templated prompts that everyone uses, right? Because you need best practices. You don't want everyone just typing in things. Eventually, I think it's great to have sharing your knowledge through formalizing what prompt engineering is, and that's really my big takeaway from talking to Dr. Smith over the past few weeks too. Is real exciting. Right now, he's the man at your district, but it has to spread out into the organization.
Okay, I'm trying to get back up to, oh, there we go. Let me get back up to my slides and I'll be a good guy. Okay, so that's the first thing I did. So I'm not going to go into everything. Again, you're going to get copies of these slides, but I'm just going to just share with you other things I did. In our independent study program, we needed to write up a curriculum for ELD. So I got together with that teacher. They're the subject matter expert concerning the ELD. We wrote up those requirements, and what we did, it actually came back and gave us the outline for 4 semesters of ELD curriculum. The next thing I did was concerning, I call it Math Not Perfect, is that I started to experimenting at that time. When I saw what was going on, I said, okay, now let me start taking the data and stuff that I was getting from Let's Go Learn. And I started inputting that information because I had diagnostics data and stuff for the students. On that case, what I wound up doing was I actually started working with the curriculum. So I was able to compare our present curriculum with the new directions that the high school wanted to go to. Again, doing a comparative analysis of it. Again, it saved me hours upon hours of time when I was up here doing this. Let's see here again. So firstly, what I was able to do, and again, on the slides, there's a scan, so you can use the links and go to it. What I did was the IEP summary. So what I did first was that I actually took an IEP summary that I got from my resource officer and uploaded that and asked it to give me a summary of it, but also to actually focus on exactly what was their goal. And when that came back, it came back with a summary of what I needed as a general education teacher. Next slide. After I did that, then I said, okay, now let's really get to it. So going back on the frame, this is how the picture in the real world should be working of how we thought it would be. When that resource teacher has a caseload and he actually does his IEP summaries, he gives those IEP summaries to the general education teacher. The general education teacher is supposed to look at that IEP summary, look specifically at that math goal, and if it says that Johnny is going to have to do this assessment or demonstrate this at 70% accuracy, etc., by the assessment, the general ed teacher is supposed to go ahead and take that information and actually do that. In reality, in 19 years or before I started getting involved with special education, and guess what? That wasn't happening. Okay, in reality, the IEP was actually given the general education teacher. They weren't closing the loop. Okay, and the reason is because it takes too much time. Okay, but now this is why we need it. And you also need to have a base tool that's going to give you some good data, personalized data, because this is what you can do. Now, if you take the IEP summary and now you give the student the diagnostics, and now you take that diagnostic summary and you put those together, now you ask AI to do some very interesting things. Like I asked AI to do a comparison, but actually to identify and summarize what I would need to know as a general education teacher and to focus on the math goal. After that, when it came out, it gave me that. And I said, oh, well, gee, for this specific student, for Johnny, he needs to do this. Then I said, okay, can you create me a project-based activity to do so? And it gave me that project-based. And I looked at it. I said, this is interesting. Next, I said, can you give me a lesson plan? Can you give me a student activity guide? And can you give me a grading rubric? AI gave me that information. So now I had this, but now what? With the next step, I needed to put it in front of a student. So what I did yesterday after going through this, then I took my student that was at really not the mild to moderate, but moderate to severe student that had so many issues and everything. And I introduced him to this project. Now, this student has been on Let's Go Learn and was engaged and showed similar growth. But when I gave him that project, it opened his eyes And when I asked and questioned him on it about it the next day, he remembered. And matter of fact, he was eager when an administrator walked through my door to share with the administrator what he learned and what Dr. Smith taught him. That is engagement. Can you imagine this happening across the country in your school district or your school? This is why I'm so excited. I'm just frustrated. I'm really excited today. And I have part of the technology I kind of got lost in. But you're going to get a copy of the slides. And if you go ahead and click on those, you'll be able to read through and see the prompts that I did and everything else. Richard, go to the next slide. So I'm kind of give you a picture summary of what was going on with the student. So with this student, when it did all the analyzing and everything else, it gave him a project. And the project was for him to do a research on a parabolic arch. I got the student and I asked him, I said, what's a parabolic arch? He had no clue. Task one was he had to do the research. So I said, you go find out. So he got his computer, went up to Google, started doing the research, and he found out what a parabolic arch is. I said, give me some examples. He started going through and seeing bridges and everything else. And then he came up with the St. Louis Arch. And so we started drawing it out. I asked the question, well, how tall and wide is the St. Louis Arch? And then he started going out and research. And then he got curious. He says, well, that's 630 feet high. He said, well, how tall is the Empire State Building? And then he went to go look at that. And he had all these things comparison. What we did was we actually showed him. We started discussing the quadratic equation. This student has a task now that they're going to create the equation for an arch that they are going to design. I've never seen a student get so excited about something and was willing to share others of what he learned because he didn't feel dumb and stupid anymore. He felt engaged. And that's what AI can do for us and the teachers. Next slide. So here we go. What do we need to do? We need to implement AI, a training program. And these are the steps to that success. Go ahead and click.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay, no problem. I know this. So there's steps. We have to understand, in other words, what is the infrastructure, what professional development, and what continuous evaluation. Because when we want something and we start it, we have to evaluate. But in order to maximize it, we need a digital infrastructure. It needs to be comprehensive and everything else. So today was about me giving you an introduction to AI. But a lot of this, it takes time. And it needs to have an actual workshop where I can actually show teachers about how to use it with the hands-on and with the hands-on approach. But there is so much potential with this AI. We have got to get our teachers involved with it. So
shall I jump down?
Go to
which one?
Yeah, go to 43.
Okay.
I just want to let that real quick. Okay. So inside the slide presentation, I have a scan here. And if you scan that code, you'll go to a page where you can actually input your email address. And then you're going to get a free download to 2 of my books. And the first book is about the 11 effective strategies. That's what the first seminar was about how to get engagement with these students. But the second book is about AI, and it's an AI mastery blueprint. Go to the next slide. So when you go there, you're going to see my friendly face here. You put your email in, you can get that. It will give you the 2 free books. Go ahead, next slide. And of course, that's the new book I did. Now, I'm going to have to revise this book, but I did it to help me understand about AI. It's an overview. But what we're talking about today, what we discussed here is actually doing the operationalizing of the data and stuff. And that's something that we're going to do in another future workshop and everything else, because I'm actually going to start to design that. And initially, I'm probably going to want to have it where we give it away free so I can get feedback so we can refine it to make sure the understanding. And then once we get it the way that we want it, then we go ahead in other directions and stuff. Next slide. And the next and last slide, this is my contact information. Sorry for the technical things, but I got excited about AI and what I'm doing, and especially what I just did with this one student. And now, since I had the success with that one student, guess what? Now I'm doing the same thing for all of my students, for all of our caseload here at our school. And hopefully in the near future and stuff, I'll be able to share that in the workshops with teachers so they can actually see what AI can do, but actually how you actually use it with the students to get our results. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry for the technical things, but hey.
All right. So now we'll take some questions and answers. And also just to sort of, this was a teaser, right? Dr. Smith and I are both really excited about it, about AI, and Bridget as well. We were talking earlier about it, but this is just to whet your appetite to see the different areas to work in. We're going to have some follow-up webinars and really about trying to chunk and operationalize pieces of this. But I think right now a lot of people don't realize how big AI is, but it's also something that could be dangerous if you don't contain it or if you don't come up with rules, because right now your teachers are using it, your students are using it. And so I think it's important right now to get rules out to sort of guide teachers in their use, because what you don't want is bad information or, so there's ways to do that. And that's really my real huge takeaway is prompt engineering, right? Formalizing the idea of how you create prompts. And just sort of a little side note, we did create an LGL report expert prompt in ChatGPT that's public, and right now we're fine tuning it. But what a prompt engineer can do is you can create a pre-trained GPT, and you can almost eventually do this for your own school district that has your information. So you could say, always use the Texas standards, use best practices, use research-based lessons when you look for lessons, right? So you want to have all that in there. So when someone says, give me a lesson to help the student in short vowel, you don't want it grabbing something that's not vetted to some extent. And so by having this stuff up front, you fine tune it, right? AI has to be fine tuned. All right, so we have a question here. How do we ensure and maintain confidentiality of student data? That's a great question, right? And so that's where you have to have guidelines. You may have to say, look, teachers, if you upload something, you can't put the student's name in, only their first name, and you have to take out any reference to the teacher. So you're gonna have to come up with those guidelines for your district. That's why we're saying you need these guidelines. We're gonna create in the Let's Go Learn system, we have all these student reports, but we're gonna create a version when you print or download the PDF, it'll say create de-identified version. And it'll take out the student's last name, take out the teacher's name, take out any other information, and only leave the first name. And so then that'll become a PDF with just the student's first name, and that'll be something you could safely upload. Of course, we're going to do that, but that's also whether you guys authorize that too, whether you think that's okay for yourselves. But that's a great question. So you're going to have to get some guidelines in there because you don't want teachers to take a student's whole IEP and drag it into ChatGPT, right? Because that has way too much information in it. Dr. Smith, how are you approaching prompt engineering for your school? Are you the point person, or do you have a committee?
Currently, I am the point person and the committee. But it's like my whole math department is the two teachers. And so like Karen, so the way things work, I actually find stuff and I bring them in my classroom and I field test them. And after they work, then I go ahead and share it with my district. And then we actually implement it across the district. Okay. That is probably going to go to another scale since I'm going to retire, because now I'm at this point. I love being in the classroom, but in order to work on things like this, I can't be in the classroom to do it. Otherwise, it'd take me over a year. But I'm saying this is so important. So yes, you do need a committee and everything else to actually work on it, because the more minds. Because here's the thing: I am the subject expertise in order to write the prompt for mathematics. I'm not the language arts. I'm not the science.
Yeah.
So you're going to need those in order to create those prompts, just like we do our normal assessments in the district during the summers and stuff. It's the same concept.
So my recommendation is you create on your internal intranet, you create a series of documents that people can click on. So you say AI prompts for school district Z, right? And then on it you say special education prompts, ELA prompts, math prompts, and so therefore people can copy that. And then when they do a prompt, they would paste it into the GPT first and say, here are some guidelines to guide you on your search. You paste it in there, then they write their prompt, right? So every time they do it, they need to do it. Now, when you get more sophisticated, you can create your own pre-trained GPTs that have it hard-coded into it. And then over time, as a district, you update it. Like that's like the Let's Go Learn GPT I created. I know how to read our reports, so I'm helping all of our customers by giving it insights. I actually uploaded even tables that show the order and scope and sequence of skills that are taught, right? So I'm doing a lot of more sophisticated stuff since we're, a publisher. So anyway, that's some stuff you can try too.
There is something that I just found out by accident. I'm not sure. This is what I found out by accident. I had actually typed this up as a generic example to create, in other words, for a task, in other words, to give to a teacher for them to do it. But what I did accidentally, I just copied it and put it in. So in other words, if you don't know how to write the prompt, you can just tell it to design the prompt and it will bring you a prompt back. I mean, I've been doing I never thought about asking it to give me a prompt to do this or that. So that can actually save you a lot of time.
So you could say something like, I'm a general education teacher at a public school district in Arkansas, and I need some prompts to make sure we get best practices, lessons, and examples when our teachers type into GPT, right? Something like that. Yes. And then it'll give you Yeah. Okay. Then it gives you something back and you could fine tune it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes, you can.
That's a great idea.
You can. Yes, I know. But that's what happens, like everything else. Accidents. That's what I love when I speak with my students about math. It's okay to make the mistakes, because some of the mistakes actually becomes out, could be very profitable ideas, as far as saving time. So I just wanted to share that. That was great. That was an oh my God moment again.
All right, so I see a few questions. Kim Peasley, hello, Kim, and she's excited about learning more, and she never thought about using the prompt to generate prompts. That's great. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Let's see here. All right, so here's a question like, at my district, I don't feel like they really see the urgency of AI. What would you recommend we do to get everyone on board? So what do you think?
Well, that was actually my intent when I wrote the book, because it wasn't everything, but I give that book. So when I have that book, I give it to my teachers and have them read it and everything else, and they look at it. Then they come back and they start asking more questions. And that's what happened to me. I just had an overview, and it was all this stuff, especially about the things about the myth, about replacing teachers. I found out right now, no, guess what? Teachers are not being replaced, because guess what? We are the subject matter expert. Yeah. AI doesn't know that. And also, they don't know my students.
Yeah.
And I don't know my other teachers' students, but they do. And you need that information, because the more information personalized that you provide it, the better the results and the higher the engagement with your students.
And let me also give you something else too. You really do need to take the bull by the horn now in your districts and schools, because if someone types in something like, I don't know if you remember in the early days of Google, but if you typed in, I'm trying to get to, Smith Auto Body, and you just type that into Google Maps, it would just give you its best guess and send you there, even though it may not be the right place you're trying to go to, right? That's how AI is. So if a teacher uploads something and says, hey, I have a 5th grader who's struggling in math, give me some activities for them. It'll generate this lesson plan that looks like it's very differentiated and personalized, but it won't be, because it's just doing it based on the limited information you have. So this is where you have to create some guidelines and best practices and frameworks, because in that case, it's sort of vague information in, specific information out, but it's not really specific. You see what I'm saying? So that is, I think, is one of the things that's really dangerous, and that's what we're trying to do, because as a diagnostic assessment company, we've got so much detailed information, and really we know all the present levels of kids. So we're trying to figure out how to operationalize that for you. One of our goals too is maybe to be the interface between GPT and our assessment platform, so that way it could have built-in privacy, and so we're working on stuff like that as well. All right, I don't see any other questions, or if anyone has one, I think we're out of time. Dr. Smith, any last words you want to do, and Bridget, to wrap up the webinar?
Well, the only thing I was going to say, so I'm actually going to make a screencastify of going to those prompts where it's clear, and I'll just provide that link to you, and you can actually make that accessible. That will also give them a little tease of those things. So I will go ahead and provide that to you. I'm excited about this and about what it can do with education, and I'm just excited to be here. Case is now my new home as a retired teacher, and I want to focus in this area concerning special education. to help special education teachers, but also to help the general education teacher in the classroom, where we can just finally be on the same sheet. But so I thank you for this opportunity to be able to share this.
And I just want to say thank you to both Dr. Smith and Richard for providing such great content to the attendees today and to those that are listening to the recording in the future. And one thing I would say is the timing is perfect. As a former director of special education, we're approaching the summer months, and now would be the time to look at your team of teachers, general ed, as you said, Dr. Smith, special ed teachers. Look at those that might be able to explore and dig into ChatGPT and do those prompts and do some of the frameworks during the months that we may not have face-to-face instruction with students, or at least not in the intensity that we do have during the school year. So this is a perfect time to take this recording and share it with your colleagues and look inward in your district to see what are the first steps that you can take and utilize these summer months to dive in and find out more about this exciting information. So again, thank you both so much, and check out on the website because it'll be posted as soon as we can.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.